Fresh clip, round 3.
Okay. No!
Very tight squeeze. Hi, chickens.
Brakes work! Now we can weld the back end all solid, then get to some real body work. Jesse likes my vroom vroom.
The chickens don't! You scared them!
Hey guys, one of the #1 questions I get is what if you could leave the rear door so that it would open out onto the flatbed? You could do it if it was legal in your state. In the state of Maine, I have to have this welded solid. That's what my inspection place wants. But let's play the what if game. This right here, Jesse helped me put this on. This marks the height that you need for your flatbed because of the articulation of about 9 to 10 inches in the rear of this thing. So you'd have 2 choices. One choice would be that you make a stepped flatbed. In that case, you could be able to, come on, pop this open, and you'd have to have a step here in your flatbed to be able to have access. You don't get that choice with this door because the gas tank is in the way. Without lifting the cab at least a good solid, probably 4 inches or more, this door is what it is. You're out of luck. Now, on the other hand, you could have half-hiked the door. You could take this hinge, you could do the body work to relocate it to here and half-height it and be able to have it open. But I don't get that option. My inspection station wants this welded. So Jessie thinks it's funny that the side she did versus the side I did, the tape ripped all the paint off.
I guess you're gonna have to do a paint job, honey.
Yeah, no kidding, I need to do a paint job. The whole damn thing needs to be painted black. It's all gonna be black. This is gonna be black, the bed's gonna be black. We'll probably do a wood top like the Rangers wood top behind you. Why? You made me more work.
I did not. You pushed the tape too hard.
That's right. This is my side. Okay, so I screwed up the Ford paint job. This is a much happier welder with the Italian wire that I swear by and I prefer. I threw some of that in once we ran out the original roll. It's an amazing little unit. As it is right now, we're now starting to figure out laying these in. What I've decided to do is I've decided to leave them slightly bumped out. I'd rather fill this and then grind it flat than end up grinding it down in and having to refill it with the welder. So that's where we're at right now. Starting to get them clicked in. I ground down a spot here in order to be able to show this, and I'm going to hope it comes out in camera. If you look really careful, you're going to see right there, there's lines going vertical. And that's because we have 2 very different thicknesses in metal, and whatever these Ford panels are definitely softer steel than what I'm trying to weld in. So I got a feeling I'm going to have to do multiple passes as I start to grind this out, finding cracks. Let's talk about why it is nobody does one-shot welds with flux core, because people get hateful all the time. The flux and the byproduct and stuff is in your way of seeing if the weld is perfect as you're doing it. For example, I've got a pinhole right there where I missed it. And so what I did was I start here and I oscillate as I come down through very slowly, which is why you can see these little offshoots going to this direction. And it is what it is. You're going to have mess ups that you're going to have to go back through. And whatever is in the seam of these doors where they pinched it together and they glued it, if you accidentally burn through, it explodes the weld. I've got several burns on my right hand already. Now I'm sure that there's some expensive tool for doing this, but as you can see, that is not lining up whatsoever. And no matter how much I push on this, I can't get it to go in far enough. So what I've decided I'm going to do is I grabbed a piece of 1/4-20 rod here, and I'm going to weld some 1/4-20 on, which will allow me to be able to tighten a nut down on it and have a pivoting bar to be able to push this in. Or at least that's the theory anyway. Well, moment of truth. Let's see if we can get this to ratchet down. Oh, that's getting tight. Needs to come in about 1/8 of an inch more. Uh-oh, snap. What snapped? Still going. Still going. I will take that. Considering all the damage on this thing, if I can call that good, I'm okay with it. The 1/8 inch rod definitely is way better because this is side by side. This is just stitching it straight across the 1/8 inch. So getting down to the 1/8 inch rod definitely made it better. So there's my 2 cents if I were you. If you can manage to get the gap down to 1/8 of an inch, it's a lot better idea. The center is officially done, and we went over the top of it with some OSHFO, which is why it has that weird silver color. Now, we've gone back and forth about OSHFO and Total Boat multiple times on this channel. Here's what I have come to the conclusion of. OSHFO and Total Boat, if you're going to paint over the top of them immediately, are about exactly the same. But if you're going to leave it out to the elements, the Total Boat is way better. Also, the OSHFO seems to flash off and seal within a day or two. The Total Boat, if you try to sand on it at all, within about 3 to 4 days, it just gums up paper. So there's my 2 cents on OSHFO versus Total Boat. Now, we gotta do the very scary part of slicing those off. Uh-oh. Battery died. Are you guys having a malfunction because you jumped out of your coop and now you can't figure out how to get in? What's up? Yeah, I know. You're the smart one. You want me to open the door? There you go. Come on, dumb one and dumb two. Let's go. Come on. Yeah, ignore the junkyard. Everything needs to get cleaned up later. Unfortunately, this summer was just too much rain to get over in there. Tends to turn into a mud pit. 5 dead grinder batteries later, we're officially unhinged. Well, probably been called unhinged for years, but anyways. So I've got to get these ground down so that they're flush, and probably lay in a few pieces of 1/8 inch rod and weld around them. I try very hard to only show tools I would buy in videos whenever possible. And then there are those cases where you end up with a sponsorship that is absolute garbage that causes you to spend $150 to do it right the second time. Hose reels are one of those things that everybody cheaps out, and it's worth spending the money to do it right. Let me show you a couple of things here. These are both 50 foot, but as you can see, one has really tall sides to the reel, and the other one does not. And as you can see here, this stupid giraffe tool one constantly tries to run off the track when it's at full reel, which causes it to jam. And then on top of that, when you go to pull this out, if it pulls out into this side piece, it'll actually jam the hose in between, and you will not be able to pull the hose, or if it's retracting in, all of a sudden out of nowhere, it'll stop, and all kinds of other things. This one here as you can see, has a much larger reel, has a harder hose in it. See, I can just barely squish that, whereas with this, I can flatten it right out instantly. So this is not going to want to wedge down in because this is close enough it can't get between it in order to wedge down in. This has rollers on both sides because it's upgraded. The sheet metal on this is thick as can be, whereas this is stamped steel. I just wanted you guys to see the difference that spending $60 makes. I don't really care if you buy a VEVOR like I did. All I care is giving you some information that lets you buy something that is not this hunk of junk that I hate. There we are. I just got to make 4 more of those and tack weld them in and then filler weld the whole thing and then grind it down. It is not perfect, but as you can see, the light is passing under the ruler all the way down through. So we can throw some fiberglass Bondo on there, we can flatten it out. We've got a really big dent here, we've got another really big dent there, another dent there. We're not going to try and get rid of all the dents, we're just going to work on filling this in. So I've got that all done. And then we come down through, we got that all done, and we got that all done. So there, I think that's where we're at. We've got 1 and 2 to do on that side. And we're almost through that 2-pound roll. So there's 20 bucks worth of wire invested at this point. I've managed to go through and recharge batteries, 12 times worth of recharge. Probably should have just run one of the corded grinders out here. So those, no big deal. That kills batteries. That will run about an hour. That will run about 15 minutes. And flap discs at like 80 grit or worse, I think this one's a 60. It eats the battery probably in about 20 minutes. If any tool company is watching this and wants to help me replace all of these stupid skill grinders that are all starting to drop dead, I would love you. Big shout out to my Facebook viewers. They reminded me that behind that, Ford has holes in it that I might as well weld up right now while I'm at it. You guys are awesome. This project would not be as cool without your support and helping out. Thank you very much for that comment. I totally forgot that. This is really an any welder trick in order to get around holes and stuff. But I do it with flux core a lot on something like this because if you stuff an old nail in there, then you're less likely to burn and keep chasing the edges of the hole with flux core. So now I can be able to just go around and tack it all the way and then grind the nails off. The lighting this time of day is just plain gonna screw me over, but I've got this Rust-Oleum professional truck bed, and what I'm thinking is this line right here down in truck bed liner and the inside of the cab. So I picked up 6 cans of this. We'll see how well this does. We also ended up creating another problem that I've got to figure out how to work around. So we've got these pieces of rubber that I took out of the center so that I wouldn't catch them on fire, because the other rubber pieces were like 2 inches in, so I didn't figure I'd catch them on fire. But because I took out the center rubber and the piece that was right down in there, I've got a gap like that big to fill on the inside. So if we come around here and we cycle to the inside of this thing. By the way, did anybody see the Furby earlier in the video? I put that in because of the old viewers saying they missed it for their kids. So we've got a giant gap here that is like 2 fingers wide. Down there we've got a hole you can see straight through, and another gap that's easily 2 fingers wide. So what I'm thinking is we get some of the landscaping waterproof foam filler stuff that they use for that kind of thing. The glue together foam that's waterproof. And I think we go around the whole entire outside edge of the door internally and maybe down through the center seam. Eventually, I would like to have a hatch right here potentially. And right here where the license plate is, if it ends up above the bed, I'd like to have a fold down so that I can put air or electrical connections or something through there, or maybe the connection for the winch that's going to be under the flatbed. I haven't quite decided as far as that's concerned, but you know, that's the future. Right now we're just trying to pass inspection, and as it is right now, like, it's solid. There's no moving it. There's no question that it's welded shut. So this is more just after the fact. Well, I don't know if the camera is catching it, but the really tall trees on the edge of the property are starting to wibble wobble, which means that the storm is coming in. I've got to shut things down and I got to get ready for the storm. We've got a bad washout section in the driveway that I haven't had a chance to fix the way that this summer has been. So before this storm finally hits, I'm going to go work on that. We'll see how this ends up after the hurricane. I'm sure it'll be perfectly fine, but you never know. We've got the other shed out back that John and I went around and we put extra water bottles on the tie downs and everything on it. But as it is, I need to spend tomorrow making sure everything's all put away before the storm. So the next thing on Van-Haulen will be ripping out the windshield that's in it. We're going to start grinding the body down, and we're going to start working on being able to paint it. Have a good day, and thanks for supporting the channel. Let's take a sec to have a learning moment while we're here with this. Now, as you can see, this only has one knob on it, and if you buy a $300 welder, which is $200 more than this, you're going to end up with your wire speed knob and some other adjustments. This is where it comes into play. If I'm over here and I'm working on this, see all of this hump here? This is good, solid weld. But I'm going to have to grind every bit of that hump down in order to finish doing this body work to make it look right. The extra $200 that you spend is so that you can be able to regulate this wire speed and not have all of this extra that you have to grind off later. Now, I'm probably using about 2 times as much wire as I really should be in order to weld that. And the Italian wire that I run, I'll post a link in the description, is only about $20 a roll. So I'd have to do a severe amount of welding to make that $200 worth it on sheet metal. But that right there is what you're spending money on. You're spending $200 that lets you dial it in better, which cuts down the amount of time that you're going to be using one of these flap discs. And time is money, so let's say I end up adding 3 hours worth of me messing around with that flat disc. So I'm burning an extra $10 worth of wire. I'm burning extra electricity, and I end up having to spend 3 hours with a flap disc, and I probably use up most of the flap disc. At that point, I literally, in the one project, have $80 into it that I could have saved by spending $200 more. That's why you buy the upgraded version of this as soon as you have the ability to.